For centuries, it was believed that the world is round. However, in the thousands of years before that, it was believed that the world was flat. I wonder which civilization was telling the truth. Information about the shape of the Earth has varied throughout history in different cultures. In ancient times, many civilizations believed in a flat Earth. For example, among ancient Greek philosophers, many believed in a flat Earth. However, some thinkers, like Pythagoras in the 6th century BCE, argued that the Earth was spherical. With advancements in science and exploration, especially from the late Middle Ages onward, there was a growing understanding in Europe and other regions that the Earth is spherical. Events such as Christopher Columbus's journey to the Americas and Ferdinand Magellan's circumnavigation of the globe provided evidence supporting the idea that the Earth is indeed spherical. Why do you ask why we think the world is round, isn't that right? Yes, it's indeed an interesting topic. We've been taught that way since elementary school, yes, that's true. So, have you ever seen it with your own eyes? Have you, or people in general, ever seen it? Maybe not. But rest assured, there are plenty of photos taken from space, and we see these photos every day. So, who takes these photos? Perhaps friends having a picnic in space last summer, who knows? But the reality is that it seems all these photos come from the same organization. They all seem to be taken from the same perspective. Interesting, isn't it? Have you ever wondered how the United Nations sees the world? Let's take a look. I'll fetch its logo right away. Here it is, take a look. Now, think about it, maybe you've always been looking at the same map. But did you know that, for Australians, that map is completely different? So, is the world flat or round? An interesting thought, isn't it? If you're looking for the claims about a flat Earth and the responses to these claims, you're in the wrong place. A simple search will lead you to hundreds of videos, articles, and endless forum discussions on the subject. In summary, there's a claim that the Earth is flat, like a disc, with the North Pole at the center and the South Pole around the edges. There are numerous supposed pieces of evidence for this claim, including the idea of a dome above the Earth and the suggestion that the Sun and Moon are much smaller and closer than we think. Yes, it might seem a bit funny at first, but when you start to investigate the presented arguments, it can be quite mind-boggling. It's like there are 10 videos between you and the truth. Instead of delving into these debates and videos, I want to approach the topic from a different perspective. I'd like to start from a letter written by one of my favorite science fiction authors, Asimov. In that letter, Asimov says, "Is it confusing enough? Wait, as I start to explain, we'll understand the subject much better together." A few thousand years ago, people believed the Earth was flat. It wasn't because they were stupid or inclined to believe foolish things. When they looked around and observed, most things seemed flat. For example, people living between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, known as the Sumerians, believed the Earth was flat based on the data they had. Consider this, the Sumerians were a highly intelligent civilization that invented writing, the most advanced civilization of their time. Now, being an advanced civilization, they also had doubts because some things they observed didn't entirely satisfy them. Later, Aristotle summarized these dissatisfactions, objections, and doubts. First, those traveling southward claimed that some stars disappeared from the sky. Second, during a lunar eclipse, the Earth's shadow took the shape of an arc within a circle. Third, ships sailing on the seas disappeared beyond the horizon. All these doubts were explained within the framework of a flat Earth perspective, just as attempts are made today. But on the other hand, the idea of a slowly emerging spherical Earth also began to surface. Of course, back then there was no Wikipedia, no Google, no internet at all. The infrastructure was insufficient, and all information was sourced from libraries. At that time, the world's largest and most advanced library was located in Alexandria, Egypt. At the helm of this library was a director named Eratosthenes. Not only was he a director, but also an astronomer, historian, geographer, philosopher, mathematician, poet, and theater critic. Imagine that, a civilization with theaters and theater critics. We're talking about the 3rd century BCE. One day, while reading through his papyrus in the library, Eratosthenes noticed a fascinating detail. The papyrus he was reading was written by a man in the city of Aswan in southern Egypt. Now, pay attention to this man, we'll come back to him. I don't know his name, so I'll call him the man by the well, because he wrote the papyrus while sitting next to a well. And he said, on the longest day of the year, June 21st, at noon when the sun is directly overhead, the shadow of the temple columns disappears. Moreover, the water in the well next to the constant shadow of the temple column begins to reflect the sun above. This, my friends, is the foundation of the model of the universe as we know it today. Now, I'm going to exaggerate a bit, but it all gradually started to take shape based on this information. Eratosthenes, upon learning this information, decided to conduct an experiment to see if the same thing happened in Alexandria. He found that the shadow didn't disappear, there was a shadow, even if it was at an angle of about 7 degrees. So, he concluded that there must be a slope on the earth. He even sent someone all the way to Aswan, paying them just to measure the distance. The units of measurement back then were very different from ours. The distance between Alexandria and Aswan was calculated to be 5,000 stadia. The shadow angle was 7 degrees, as you might recall, which is approximately 1/50th of 360 degrees. So, 50 times 5,000 is 250,000 stadia. With all the fractions, he calculated that the circumference of the Earth was 252,000 stadia. In ancient Egypt, one stadium was about 157.5 meters. Multiply 252,000 stadia by 157. 5 meters, and you get 39,690 kilometers. According to modern calculations, there's a margin of error of 1.6%, so he was indeed wrong. However, according to those who claimed the Earth was flat, this error was only 1.6%. Later, a man named Bidvanius, an Alexandrian, came and said, yes, the Earth is a sphere, and it's the center of the universe. Then Nasreddin Hodja came, not an Alexandrian but from Khorasan. He calculated the movements of planets, showed that Ptolemy was wrong, and passed the ball to Copernicus. Copernicus, who was Polish, presented a sun-centered model with the help of his calculations, essentially saying that everyone before him was wrong, and then he passed the ball to Newton. The ball went on, under the tree he sat beneath, struck by an apple falling on his head. Newton discovered something called universal gravity and developed a model of the universe based on it. So, did the story end here? No, it didn't. It won't end. Every new name will be from a different city, learning from the mistakes of previous ones and putting forth less erroneous theories. As Asimov said, errors are relative, and that's how the scientific method works. People from different geographies, different nations, share their information and findings openly when developing a scientific theory. This way, errors are corrected, leading to less flawed results. Yes, you seem to be saying, get to the main point already. Many seemingly rational people are talking about the flat Earth theory, presenting seemingly logical evidence, and I've watched hundreds of videos on this topic, and I started thinking the same way, right? Firstly, I didn't drag this issue too long. Those claiming the Earth is flat have been dragging it out for thousands of years. Secondly, there's no scientific theory here. At most, there's a conspiracy theory. Do you know why it's a conspiracy theory? Because it contains a very classic conspiracy approach. They are lying to us. There are no photos of the Earth taken from space. They're all photoshopped because humans have never been to space. NASA is trying to convince us that they went to space using thousands of employees and billions of dollars, and not just NASA. All space agencies in more than 50 countries are part of this conspiracy. To deceive us convincingly, not just once, but 155 times a mission to the Moon was conducted, 43 to Venus, 40 to Mars, 9 to Jupiter, 9 to the Sun. And they were sent into space by 6 different countries, and to avoid suspicion, 112 different manufacturers were involved. The US and Russia, who argue about everything, built 10 space stations just to deceive us on this issue. Did other countries stand still? They launched 1,100 active satellites into orbit, all lies, deception, they can't stand our success. There's a term in classical legal logic dating back to Cicero, Cabono, who benefits. Why are they lying? Well, let me tell you, it's all because of that man. Remember the man by the well, 2,300 years ago in Aswan, Egypt? The stone he threw into the well is now puzzling 40,000 smart people. If it weren't for that man, Eratosthenes wouldn't have suspected shadows and wouldn't have started this big game, this big lie. Throughout history, all these thinkers, scientists, observers wouldn't have participated in this grand game, this big lie. But we woke up, didn't we, friends? As chosen ones, they can't deceive us anymore. The Earth is not round, and our heads aren't round either. So, we'll start using them and what's inside more effectively. Among all these deceptions, among all these misleading things, do you know who disappointed me the most? Nasreddin Hodja. For years, we laughed at his jokes, which were both funny and thought-provoking, but now I understand that he was also part of this big game. He was also mistaken about the shape of the Earth. One day, a man, intending to test Mr. Nasreddin, asks a sly question, "Mr. Nasreddin, where is the center of the world?" Smiling, Mr. Nasreddin points to the spot where he stands and says, "Right here." However, thinking that the man who asked the question is someone not easily fooled, considering it's a common folk saying, the man responds with a bewildered expression, "Come on, Mr. Nasreddin, don't do that, for the love of God." Mr. Nasreddin, in his usual humorous manner, replies, "If you don't believe me, measure it."